Greetings, this is Chester with the Sampleist, and our sonic journey today is Sonixinema's String Shades. Before we dive in, I'd like to make it crystal clear that the copy of this instrument we're reviewing was graciously provided to us by the developer. However, let me assure you that our commitment to delivering honest and transparent reviews remains unwavering. Our goal is to arm you with all the information you need to decide if this instrument deserves a spot in your musical toolkit. Sonixinema's String Shades emerges as a striking innovation into the realm of sampled instruments. This collection is a testament to the beauty, imperfection, and power of creative freedom. With a 14-piece chamber ensemble, String Shades breaks away from the conventional synchronized play, instead celebrating the individuality of each musician. This approach not only enriches the library with unique expression, but also imbues it with a deeply personal touch that resonates with composers looking to stand out. The ensemble consists of 6 violins, 4 violas, and 4 cellos, and was captured in the legendary Rottenbuehler studios in Budapest, Hungary. Victor Szabo's expert engineering, utilizing a rich array of microphone perspectives and an inviolable collection of vintage and modern microphones, ensures that each note is recorded with pristine clarity and depth. String Shades features 5 core articulations and over 50 custom presets, including innovative pairings and creatively designed patches, offering unparalleled flexibility. Whether the goal is to craft delicate underscores or construct monumental film scores, String Shades provides the necessary components to bring such visions to life with ease. The articulations from warm undulations to experimental pointillism offer a spectrum of emotional and textural possibilities. The innovative character slider further expands the sonic palette, allowing for real-time manipulation of additional sound design layers. This feature, along with the meticulously organized presets, opens new horizons for creative expression, making String Shades an essential asset for composers daring to tread uncharted musical territories. Compatibility with the full version of Kontakt 6.8.0 or higher ensures a seamless integration into existing workflows. The instrument needs 14.5 gigabytes of hard drive real estate that speaks to its depth and quality. Priced at £99, String Shades currently has an introductory offer of 20% off, making the library £79 today. Let's now explore the presets this instrument has to offer. String Shades. It reminds me a lot like with the way it works, String Swells, which is also by Sonixinema, and the way that I would, pull this library up in a piece and work with it. The difference is this feels more like an expansion where I'm not going to have dedicated, or simple kind of core sounds of strings like, longs, shorts, tremolo, things like that. This is definitely emotive, kind of just like a different type of, shade or texture that I need working with strings. And it sounds fantastic. It's very fun to play. As you heard in that little intro, I can even use the pitch bend in ways that just sound really fun. This is a great library to just kind of pull up and kind of get going and really dive into and see what it's all about. This library is split up into 3 ways of kind of grabbing presets. I don't usually use Sonixinema's presets unless I'm going for their designed kind of ones, their custom curated kind of presets. I'll usually just use the UI and pull it up. It's very easy to use. And the single presets, you're just going to get one of these 5 kind of options. You can also use key switches to get them. I'm just mostly focus on the UI when we're in the review. We have undulating, that's what we're hearing here. Hear it when you use mod wheel or your dynamics, your CC1. We can really hear things pop the more we add those dynamics in. Strings become more vocal and alive, and then they kind of mellow out the more you bring it down. Next up, let's just check out emotive, hear how that sounds. Pulsing. If you notice in the UI, we have no control over the pulses at the rate at which we're pulsing. I've tried looking for it just as recorded. In the UI, we have some abilities where we can change one of the core 5. So if we don't want pulsing anywhere, we can just put emotive here if we wanted. This is kind of how you control your key switch. So we can move these around. If we wanted wild trills here, we could, switch these two if we wanted. There's a lot of kind of fun things we can do here. Default, this is kind of like a volume of this core articulation, and then as well as panning. So we can kind of adjust this. If we want emotive always to the left, you can do that, or the right. Options are really great for when you start building your presets beyond these core articulations. Let's enable wild trills, and when we do, we get this pop-up, which is great. We do get this, you can play both minor and major trills with this patch. And so we can, learn that if we play the key softly, we get a minor trill. If we play the key hard, the velocity is higher, then we get, the major trills. So that's how we control how we form those. I'm gonna try soft first. And I'm already noticing that I don't like how busy that sounds with the amount of voices I just played. So I'm gonna try less notes. Let's try a louder velocity now. Fragments. All right, now that we've looked at each of the 5 core articulations, let's kind of dive in more into this UI. So the next step in kind of like the string Sonixinema world is we'd start pairing up these 2 presets together, and then we'd start mixing and matching, which just simply means that we can decide how we kind of want to look at this. In my history of working with string swells, when I pull up these libraries, I'm actually pretty happy with one patch where I'm just maybe grabbing like emotive and saying, all right, my bases are covered here and I'm going to move forward. What was really fantastic about this versus string swells is this brand new feature by them. It's called the character slider. It gives us 5 new kind of flavors to kind of come in and choose from and decide how, if we want to add these or not. And the slider applies how much you want, right? So let's start at 50%. Let's turn on haze. Aha! Just had a eureka moment there, and that makes so much sense. So if we actually take all this out, so none of this is on, these can play, so we can have haze. I do want to, this is more of a note for Sonic Cinema. There is no content around what haze, dream state, flickers really is. Just kind of says, here's character sliders, and here you go. I would have really liked to have seen some more about this. This is a brand new feature that's kind of rolling out. What is stargazing? What is flickers? And what makes me choose it? We are creation type of folks, so we can kind of dive in here ourselves and kind of see what we like and what we don't. But to get some more context around these would have been stellar for us. But now we can really hear what they sound like without having these presets. So technically, you get 5, and then you get 10 here total to just kind of dive in and choose from. That's fun. So here's haze. And the dynamic wheel does affect it. Here's dream state. Almost kind of organy, but so yeah, it would have been nice to hear how these were created. Flickers. Got stargazing. Fun, I noticed the mod wheel doesn't alter these, but it does alter the core articulations. That's something worth noting here. Apocalypse. Or the pitch bend. Let's go back to this. Sorry, my apologies. The pitch bend does not alter these characters. The mod wheel does, but the pitch bend does alter and bend the note of the 5 core articulations. That's a finding here in this review. Now we have Apocalypse. Hearing it on its own, this might be my favorite one of the 5. There's beauty in that saturation for sure. That's a really great character. All right, so we've heard the 5 characters on their own. Now you can kind of start blending these, mix and matching them, kind of seeing how you want to build your own presets at this point. I would just say take caution in this and plan and choose wisely, because the more you add to these Sonic Cinema presets, the more CPU, they get really CPU intensive. You're not going to get much more beyond 3 and maybe a few characters. This is something that I hope to see Sonic Cinema improve on over time, because string swells was very tough to use the more you add to it. Same with string shades, there's no difference here. The more I turn things on, the more I am pulling quite a bit of CPU from one patch. You can see 3 notes. I get right up to 20, and now I add another one, and we're just over 30. So you gotta take note of this and make sure that the more voices you're adding into your music and your part, you're going to turn some of this off. The less voices that you add to a part, you can actually add more to it. So keep that in mind when you're composing and thinking of kind of the piece that you're writing and the part that String Shades is going to play in it. Make these considerations while you're working with it, and you'll be totally fine as you think of your CPU and RAM and everything like that. We're going to turn this off. Moving on, we have a global area where we can set expression. This is another Sonic Cinema thing. Expression never just comes in at CC11. It typically does elsewhere. CC11 is this mix by default, their mix mic position. That is something I've found very interesting. I'm always removing it, and I'm always adding expression here because I want it to kind of work like every other library kind of does in my templates. So usually I'll do that, and I'll save kind of my string shades patch in my template, and I'll be kind of set. But that's a very small, minor kind of thing to note. Some other composers might not even run into that. Blur and gloss, that's back, and that's kind of can help set up kind of like a unique, sound to your presets as you blend that in and get that sounding right. You can adjust your stereo width here. You can even turn it down. Proximity is kind of set here too. It's global and in mix, and this is just kind of close versus far proximity of the mic positions, and it's kind of nice how that's kind of set up where you can just kind of set your chord and it kind of automatically kind of adjusts that for you. So if you like that, if you like using proximity, it's available there. Otherwise, you can kind of to taste adjust how you want your mic positions to be. You can mute and solo here, and then you can also take these all out if you wanted, which is something that I kind of typically do sometimes. I really like their mix, their full mix here that they provide you. Kind of an instant favorite of mine. So a lot of the times I might be taking these out, maybe even sometimes muting them, and then just letting this mix play. And then sometimes I'm not. It just kind of depends on the gig and what you're looking to do. You also have stereo with knob here as well. Auto purge, you can set that up and it automatically purges for you. It's a great little feature to have within the UI as well as here. Purge all samples does the same thing. Then over here we have effects where you can add reverb, you can add a degrade, which is kind of like a sample reducer or a bit crusher, or kind of pick your poison. This just degrades, your bits and your sample rate and kind of gets a nice little crunchy sound if you're looking for something like that. Then you have a delay as well. And you can sync to tempo here. And then with reverb, you have all of these options for different types of reverb. Choose something that works for you. We have an EQ, which is a 4-band, and these are shelves. And I like how it kind of animates while you turn it up or down. That's really nice. Although it doesn't animate on this, it just animates on the volume. And then you have 2 bell EQs here, and you have your low shelf, and they all animate, which is a lot of fun. And then we have an envelope at the end. So if you want to adjust any of your ADSR, you can do so here, and that works globally. All these work globally. All right, and so that is the first UI page. Then we have mapping. So if you want to kind of adjust the key mappings, you can do so here. And this kind of works globally because you can apply to each one of the core articulations. You can also move your key switches around right here. So you see if you don't like them down here in the lower octaves, you can move them to the upper octaves just with ease. And then they all move kind of in the UI there. So that's very hip. All right, so we can adjust a lot of these things. You can also use these. You can hit reset. You can fade, kind of do like a fade in and out, which is kind of fun. It appears to work both a low and high range. Kind of adjust anything here in mapping. You can turn that off. You can also apply a gate to your effect. That's pretty sweet. You can adjust the gate too. We can have width, strength, swing. We can switch the modes. We can randomize it. We have it turned on. And as you can hear, the gate kind of works with the amp. So we're kind of hitting the volume and kind of turning it on and off. You can set your direction. And this is the way to make kind of these articulations shorter, choppier, more rhythmic, is you would apply the gate. Otherwise, you're kind of using them and they are going to be kind of, based from kind of like a long format where you're holding notes and holding chords. You can shift the sequence direction with a click of a button. You can reset it, you can clear it, and you can save them as your own presets, or you can use some of theirs. They give you a ton of different preset variations, and you can set the rhythm here. I did forget to mention that. So the rate of the rhythm can happen right there. A lot of great options for you to choose from with that gate. And then info here, which is kind of fun if you want to nerd out on tech specs, the credits, who's kind of responsible for making this great library, and then kind of a little bit of the about, and that's the UI. Let's go over a few of the presets that come with string shades. All right, so we've pulled up the designed or custom presets that Sonixinema has created for us, and we'll start going through a few of these. This one's called At Peace. long reverb tail. Sounds really great and rich just off the bat there. We can see we're using the undulating as the core, one of the core 5, and character. When we open this up, we're using dream state. That sounds great. And so with this, what I was saying before is now you can kind of add a few more voices and you're going to be under your CPU usage. And that's a great, nice, simple patch here. And that's where I think the Sonixinema patches shine when you're creating something like this. And then they have a nice amount of reverb. The size is going to be substantial. Looks like we're in a cathedral. So that tail is pretty long when we let go of our chord. Up next, we have a gate. This one's called Bewitch. So when I look, we can see wild trills here is used. Remember what we read about wild trills, smaller velocities, where velocity is bigger, the velocity, then we start hearing major trills, and then when we're really subtle on the velocity, we hear the minor trills. And then we got that gate going. There's some character here as well. Looks like we're using the Apocalypse. We can go to the sequencer. The gate is on 16th notes. That sounds pretty fun. Here's contours, where we're gonna see we're using a mode of impulsing. We got the character going here with flicker and haze. So with us having kind of 4 characteristics, or 4 kind of, if we think about core articulations, as we add more to our chord voicings, we're going to see our CPU being a little higher, but I think we can still kind of achieve what we're looking to do, even with these going on. And they've added some reverb tail. I'm sure there might be, sometimes you see some EQ, not in this one, and maybe some envelope adjustment. And then here we have some nice little mix. All right, let's try a couple others. This one's called Defy Them. We see we have 2 preset options for the core articulations. We have maybe a couple characteristics, 3 of them in here, and some reverb as well. And my CPU is spiking pretty hard on this one, even by using the same kind of chord voicings I have throughout. So that's what I was saying with these patches and these presets. Just keep an eye on that. You'll probably be fine maybe taking one kind of voice out. And there I'm not getting any clicks or pops anymore, so. All right, next up, got echoes. With this one, we're using fragments. We got some delay, some reverb. We have a little bit of EQ and stereos all the way up with some gloss. That's a really fun preset. Fallen. We've split up in the stereo spectrum emotive and pulsing, where we're on the left and the right. We have it turned down a little bit, I've noticed. A lot of gloss, a lot of reverb, no EQ. Doesn't look like much for that, but then we added some character as well. Looks like in here we have dream state going on. Yeah, that sounds kind of nice, little dreamy sound too. Gone Girl, which is another gate. It's interesting how it reacts based on when you release the notes. Kind of works differently based on when you... All right, so we're not using any of the 5-chord articulations here, but we are using the characters. We have apocalypse and flickers going on with this one. Some reverb, delay, some gloss. It looks like these happen before the gate as well, by the way, these effects. Otherwise, yeah, everything's looking... This one's called Hold On. And so we dissect this a little bit. We're just using stargazing, and we have the undulating and wild trills, where undulating is a little softer, and some reverb. Ice planes, where we have the pulsing, no character, reverb and delay. And I've kind of noticed I've been treating the 14-piece chambers just by using chords and everything like that. So some of us might be asking, how does this work in a melodic sense? If I wanted one voicing and I wanted to, create a melodic line. So. And that would be a great question to ask when diving through these presets. There are going to be some that do approach melodic lines better than others, for sure. So it can do both, and I definitely say it does both depending on what you're going to set up from a preset perspective. So, but yeah, it can. And then we have Jaded here. This one sounds a little hazier, but we're using dream state, stargazing, apocalypse, along with this emotive core articulation. A lot of blur on this one, and some EQ, reverb, delay. All right, so I'll make this last preset to kind of go through, and then we'll go to the piece. But this one's called Kinetic. We're not using any of the core articulations in this one, but we are using some character. On the character slider, we have flickers and apocalypse, and we have something that sounds like this. So with the character being brought down to halfway, it's a very soft, subtle articulation. So we can use that to our advantage when needing something like this that's more atmospheric, something that needs to be more of kind of like a bed or texture in the background, and then kind of maybe using another patch to play something melodic over it or play another idea. So kind of that's where we can get more edge and more versatility with kind of a library like this. And that's a great option to have. So let's hear how string shade sounds in a musical piece and the context around that. All right, so that was the piece. We're looking at a 90 BPM in the key of G minor. We can start here at string shades. We definitely started the piece here. So I'm gonna kind of put those as our red. And we have a chord progression. I don't know where it starts or ends. There's actually a couple chord progressions, I believe 4 total. I cut them all up and whatever's left is left. I also, at the end here, I did cut a huge amount of this intro out. So the end piece that you heard, it's not 1-to-1 here necessarily, but I think most of this middle is cut. When I look at some of the MIDI here, we got, this is kind of the chord progression we're rolling with. And then, like I said, cut a lot of it out. I think I wanted to start with the gate. I believe I did. I think this is the first preset I load up, which is going to be this Lost Boy gator. I tried several of the designed gates patches and presets, and this one kind of ended up taking control. I also paired it with kinetic. Yeah, that's right. This kinetic patch, which is just characters. We went over this in the preset walkthrough, and we have the apocalypse and flickers going on. So we have that playing along with it, and it's kind of doing this pulsing kind of sound. Right, this like in and out. That was good movement, good momentum for kind of the intro. So that's kind of taken the forefront. What I wanted to do, full disclosure, is I wanted to kind of, this was after the fact, after I kind of wrote this, I wanted to show, how string shades would end up being an option as we're composing a piece. And so I was thinking about doing like an action cue. And then there's like a scene of kind of, we're taken away from the action and we're like left with some like looming kind of emotional situation going on. And that's what this part is. This part is kind of out of the action. We're kind of taken somewhere else. And that's where I think string shades is fantastic for. It's an expansion library. It's kind of meant to be like, here's 5, core articulations that you're going to use for emotional kind of moments or moments where you don't have a whole lot of big action cues or anything like that. There's far many more situations where you can use string shades. That was just one of them that I was kind of trying to use to show here. So this ends up being representative of that, where it's got this pulsing like thing that's taking us out of that action cue and bringing us, it's a transitional feature of string shades, kind of showing that we're getting out of the action and now into that emotional cue that that I was kind of describing. Same with the gate, but the gate was a little more dramatic. Now coming in, we have just the 2 strings. One is string shades. This is kind of the primary one. This is playing at peace, which is doing an undulating and pulsing kind of effect. If I go into characters, we got dream state, and I believe I did alter this patch a bit. So this is at peace, but me kind of messing with it a little bit and doing a few things. Also, I do mess with the mix, and like I said, I like that mix almost most. So a lot of these presets, even though I'm showing their presets, I did kind of alter them a touch. The other one is echoes down here, which I might have changed. Yeah, I changed it to nocturnal. I probably started with the echoes preset and then moved it to nocturnal, which had a really fun kind of sound to it. I didn't use the mix here for this one. I think the mix kind of took away what this fragments and the delay is doing, so I just kind of left it as is. More of a background, secondary part of the strings. Another thing that I look at when I look at this, when I'm using string shades, is it's kind of more of an ensemble of strings. I'm using the whole chamber string section when I'm composing a piece with string shades. I don't ever look at it like I'm going to compose, violins, and then I'll compose the violas, and I do that within the chord progression and the voicings. And then we have echoes that comes in here in the middle, and then it comes in when we have comes right there with the oboe melody. String swells, that's the other thing we did here. So I use string swells in this patch, Everlasting, as part of this piece as well. And I used automation. You're going to see it move quite a bit when it's playing. The 2 to 4 bar, it's going to move around a lot. Depending on, I think it moves right here. Right, so there's automation here and kind of adjusting how that's working, but we have soltasso as the core articulation going on here, and with this string swells, there's no character slider. It's just kind of how long do you want the swell to be? But everything else is very similar. We have the gate, we have the way to map, all those things. String swells is a really great example if you want like some core articulations as well as a few other options that might not be core so much. Oh, all right, sorry about that. Ableton crashed. So we'll see if I can piece this together. And with string swells, you have these 5 what could be considered like core articulations: tremolo, vibrato, normal or normale, sol ponticello or soltasso. These soltassos more and more common these days, but these, I could consider these somewhat core articulations for long strings and long string passages. So we have that paired up with string shades. They kind of layer in well, and this doubles the size of the chamber orchestra, where we're at 14-ish. Now we're at kind of 28 kind of string players total. And it is feeling a little choppy right here, but again, we do have everything unfrozen and kind of going. So normally I would start kind of freezing some tracks and getting some CPU reserved for these things. So you heard the final piece. There's no kind of chopping at that point. To help with the middle, we have, and to provide a little more movement, we added Oliver Arnold Stratus. Kind of helping with the middle there. And then we have the oboe, which is played by, I believe, Spitfire. I don't have very many woodwind libraries other than that one, so we're using, I believe, Studio Winds. And I don't know why I chose oboe, it just kind of happened. Honestly. We added some bass and some movement here. I wanted to contrast some of the long note, chordal parts that are going on with the strings and with other parts of the song. So I felt like, a pulsing bass could help us there. And it also, like I said, this is kind of the secondary interaction of an action cue we're out of the action, but there still was action or will be, so the mosaic bass just keeps everything moving along and was a great addition to kind of keeping this whole thing going. Then we add some percussion where I kind of have just low and high. This allows for, us to add, mid percussion and a lot of other elements in other areas when we need to, bring the piece back up and get whatever this cue is moving along. So in the middle part, we do have kind of this Brunel loop kind of going. I like the shaker. I mostly just wanted a shaker there. It included other elements that we kept in, but I definitely just wanted the shaker. We have just this reverse that I got from a Vengeance Essential House. So just grabbed a reverse crash where I could find one, and that just goes into Albion 1's crash here. And they pair up there. And then we have Easter Island as our kind of our low sub-boom bass drum that comes in when needed. And that's the piece. It's time to wrap up our journey with some final reflections. The core of String Shade's appeal lies in its ability to meld the raw emotive power of a 14-piece chamber ensemble with the nuanced, innovative capabilities of modern sound design. The instrument's unique approach, asking musicians to play with personal expression rather than the perfect unison, imbues each composition with a lifelike quality that's hard to find elsewhere. This, combined with a rich assortment of articulations and presets, opens up a world where each note can whisper, wail, or weave its own story. The introduction of the character slider is a game changer, offering composers the ability to effortlessly infuse their tracks with additional textures and atmospheres. From the ethereal touch of Dream State to the saturated vibes of Apocalypse, the sound design possibilities become as limitless as one's imagination. With over 50 custom presets, detailed articulations, and that innovative feature like the character slider, this library is a testament to Sonixinema's commitment to pushing the boundaries of music production. At its reduced price of £79, represents not just an investment in a high-quality sample instrument, but in the future of cinematic music composition itself. Whether for delicate underscoring or creating vast, epic textures, String Shades is an essential tool for composers who dare to dream big and wish to leave a mark with their next musical journey. This is Chester, signing off from the Sampleist, and I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you're hungry for more insightful reviews, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to stay tuned with all things the Sampleist. Until our paths cross again, keep having fun making your music. Cheers.